So Justice Ganguly, who has been charged with sexual harassment, a charge that he has denied, is still maintaining that the time has not yet come for him to take a decision on whether he needs to resign, even as his critics and many feminists are saying he must at least step aside till we know what's in the Supreme Court and what conclusion the Supreme Court comes to. Remember, there is a Supreme Court appointed committee that has submitted its report before the Chief Justice after recording the testimonies of the young intern who alleged sexual harassment, as well as a testimony from Justice Ganguly. What sort of implications does this case have? Is the judiciary, which is always in a sense the arbiter of justice for other people, responding in the manner that it should? Or is the judiciary guarding itself in a way that other institutions could never afford for themselves when it comes to sexual harassment and sexual violence? Let's introduce our panel this evening. We're joined by Indira Jaising. She's of course presently the Additional Solicitor General of the country. We're also joined by Harish Salve, former Solicitor General of India. Also joining me on the program, KTS Tulsi, Senior Advocate of the Supreme Court, somebody who has grabbed the headlines in the past week as the key defending lawyer for Tarun Tejpal in the Tehelka rape charge. With me in the studio, BG Verghese, one of our senior most commentators and journalists and editors. Also with me in the studio, Raju Ramachandran, the former Additional Solicitor General of India. And from Kolkata tonight, Ananya Chakravarti, Professor of Journalism at St. Xavier's College, Calcutta. Indira Jaising, if I may start with you. You have gone on record to say that it is not enough, the responses we have seen from Justice Ganguly and even, in a sense, from the Supreme Court that has chosen to not make this report by its internal committee public. Why do you believe it is so important for us to know what is in the committee's report till the Chief Justice reaches a conclusion?
I think the reasons are obvious. It makes for transparency, it makes for accountability, and it will put an end to baseless rumors. That's the only way to do it. And there are two aspects. One is what does the report say, and the second is what decision is the Chief Justice going to take. Yes. So for us to get to know what the report says, it can be the time is now, as soon as it is submitted. And the next stage is what decision will the Chief Justice take?
And Indira, what do you believe Justice Ganguly should do in the interim? Because he has made the argument that he is innocent. He has made the argument that there isn't a conclusive finding against him yet. So if you presume the legal principle of innocent until proven guilty, which he might well invoke, being the judge, and so many of you are officers of the law here, what should he do?
I will not invoke the principle of innocent until proven guilty, because this is not a criminal trial. This is a fact-finding body where that principle does not operate. Let me tell you what principle operates in a situation of this kind. It is the principle of holding an office of trust. He is and was holding a position of trust. And the principle that operates in that case is that even if there is the slightest suspicion of behavior which is inappropriate, which may amount to misconduct, indeed which may amount to a crime, you simply have to resign. That is the expectation from people who occupy positions of trust.
Harish Salve, do you agree? And as a feminist, my instinct is always to agree with Indira on all such matters. But I'm stepping aside from my feminist instinct for a moment and placing forth a contrarian argument. There are people who have said to me in the past week, what if tomorrow XX person, anybody, just makes up a charge? Our instinct is to believe the woman. What if the man is innocent? I'm placing a devil's advocate argument on the record. That's what Justice Ganguly said.
I'm very happy you said that. The allegations against Justice Ganguly are now plain and simple an incident between two private people. He was a former judge, she was a former intern, and I believe the blog says as a former intern she called on him and this incident happened. Why must he not be considered with the same rigor of the law as any other citizen of this country? So what you're saying is extremely important. We must deal with him as you would have dealt with the head of a big corporation, with a CVC, with a CAG, with anybody holding an office of trust, and a person who's in this position. The second question, what should he do in the meanwhile? Our Supreme Court has, in the P.J. Thomas case, set the bar very high of institutional integrity. People in very high office do not have to be proven guilty. People in high office must be above any kind of suspicion. So the test, I'm afraid, is wrongly applied.
Harish, what if
he
were a serving judge? What if he were a serving judge? Because you made the formulation.
I'm coming to that.
Yeah.
I'm coming to that.
Yeah.
For a serving judge, we now have a quandary that is there somebody trying to pressurize him to deliver a judgment in a particular case. So we have this system which was evolved in the Veeraswamy case, which, speaking for myself, needs to be relooked from time to time. That there should be some sort of in-house fact-finding inquiry before you permit legal proceedings being taken against a single judge. So where sitting judges are concerned, they are dealing with cases, they are dealing with judgments. There is always this possibility. Coming to the last point with Indu raised,
yeah.
Believe me, today the institution is under trial. These allegations are flying thick and fast in public. If there is a fact-finding committee, the chief may accept it, may not accept it. But I think there is no harm if everybody knows that there is nobody else guilty, or there are allegations against X, Y and Z, or prima facie somebody or is not guilty. You have no idea in the corridors of the Supreme Court. Today, nobody is being spared, because this was my point against Prashant Bhushan when he said half the former chief justices are corrupt. I said, by saying this, you have damned all former chief justices, because nobody knows who the other half are. So when you say things like there are some other judges who have done a similar thing, it's very unfair to all the other judges. And as soon as possible, you must have this mist cleared. Either that the young lady is taking liberties with the truth, in which case we must know that our institution is not like that. Or if she is not taking liberties with the truth, let us see where it is going. But I'm sorry, this keeping this under a cover, as it were, is only going to acerbate matters rather than trying to resolve anything.
Okay, I want to just read out from an interview the intern has given to Legally India, and her words are telling. She says, I bore and still bear no real ill will towards the man and had no desire to put his life's work and reputation in question. We now know she is speaking about Justice Ganguly. On the other hand, she says, I felt I had a responsibility to ensure that other young girls were not put in a similar situation. But I have been unable to find a solution that allows that. Despite the heated public debates, despite a vast army of feminist vigilantes, despite new criminal laws and sexual harassment laws, I have not found closure. The lack of such an alternative led to my facing a crippling sense of intellectual and moral helplessness. KTS Tulsi, I ask you especially to weigh your words carefully, because you have come under a great deal of scrutiny, because you have chosen to represent Mr. Tarun Tejpal in the Tehelka case, which is an even more grave charge of rape. What disturbs people and what makes it so difficult for women to come forth and speak is because they will be deconstructed in all sorts of ways. Why did they not speak earlier? What is their character? They're called liars. They're called politically motivated. We're seeing strands of that here. We have seen strands of that in the case that you have dealt with. So I'm asking you, do you not feel that the responses of our system are going to discourage young women from speaking, because their lives have to play out in the public gaze?
No, I don't agree with that. I think that in this case, the Supreme Court has really made an example of it. The Attorney General filed a writ petition on the same day on which the allegations appeared in the newspapers. And he filed the writ petition in his personal name, not as the Attorney General, but as a lawyer. And then he impressed upon the Chief Justice that the matter must be heard on the same day. And the Chief Justice then agreed and agreed to hear the matter on the same day where the committee was constituted. The Chief Justice has set an example for the whole country and all the employers to follow. In this case, the committee went into the matter straight away into the business, and within 10 days they have formulated a report and handed it over to the Chief Justice. Chief Justice must be consulting, and I'm sure in due course the report will be made public.
So do you believe, Mr. Tulsi, that Justice Ganguly should resign in the interim?
I don't think so, because Justice Ganguly is at least a citizen of this country who's entitled to all the constitutional protections of presumption against you can't presume him to be guilty. Why are we not willing to wait for the report which is with the Chief Justice, and maybe tomorrow, day after, it should be in the public domain, and in that case we will be in a better position. There is no allegation by this girl that Justice Ganguly has ever tried to deter her from filing the complaint. The other feature of this case is that the complaint has been filed after 11 months. Normally 11 hours are sufficient delay for the courts to doubt the version.
How can you say that, Mr. Tulsi?
11 months, of course, that's the law.
It certainly takes, and I can say this as somebody, and every woman has faced sexual harassment in some form or the other, and certainly takes a lot more than 11 hours to decide what you want to do, Mr. Tulsi. That's a pretty insensitive
Very well, it could take more than 11 hours, but then it can't take 11 months. Otherwise, we will turn the entire criminal law upside down.
Harish is coming in there. I'll allow him and Indira to come in before I go to the rest.
Sorry,
Harish.
for a young child, if this is false, it is the worst thing she has done. But if it is true, I marvel at the courage of this child. I know what atmosphere we work in. I know I have interns in my chamber. I am only a lawyer. I have seen judges, interns. They look upon the institution as something sacred. They look upon these judges as haloed citizens. And that is how our system works.
Yeah.
Our judges are supposed to be worthy of being worshipped. Otherwise, public opinion will not support the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
And that is why to judge by these common law, by FIR standards, FIR filed few days late, therefore prosecutrix must be a bad character. I'm sorry, we need a rethink of all this mindset.
Indira, is there any merit to the delay, to the argument of delay? Mr. Tulsi, I'll come back to you, and I just want to go to the others also after Indira.
Barkha, we all know the reasons for the delay, and I don't wish to be personal, but I think even to raise an argument of this kind at this point of time is almost like coming to the defense of Justice Ganguly, because actually what is the argument? The argument is, by virtue of the delay, the complaint is likely to be false, and who does this argument help except Justice Ganguly? That's one point. The second issue, so it's an argument which should not be made by the person concerned. The second point is that he said that the Attorney General filed it in his personal name. Well, yes, the petition has been filed by the Attorney General in his personal name. However, one can't wish away the fact that he is the Attorney General of India. And secondly, he said he's filed it in his capacity as a lawyer. I'm afraid not. He has filed it in his capacity as a human being. Yeah. Let's be clear about that.
Okay.
Now, the third point that I want to make is there is a little, I find Harish's proposition a little confusing when he says that it's a matter between a former intern and a former judge. If it was just that, different considerations would apply. But he is today holding the position of chair of the West Bengal Human Rights Commission.
Yes.
That he's therefore not just another human being. He's just not another private person.
Okay.
Harish, quickly, the protection.
It is the institutional, institutional integrity.
Yeah.
The integrity of the Human Rights Commission
protection which you gave
into question.
Oh, absolutely. The protection you give to an existing sitting judge under the Veeraswamy judgment will not apply. I meant it in that sense.
Okay. Let me just get in B.G. Verghese and Raju Ramachandran now. Mr. Verghese, you have argued in a separate case that we are not looking at today, which is the Tehelka and Tarun Tejpal case, that there has been a kind of gotcha attitude by the media. It has conducted a media trial in that case. Now, my question is a little more philosophical. If we argue that everybody has the right to a trial, everybody has the right to be heard, everybody has the right to be presumed innocent until they're proven guilty, how do we tackle sexual harassment complaints when it involves public and powerful men? Because what happens to women who complain is that they get deconstructed in almost a merciless manner. And that is, I think, the point that Indira and Harish and all are making, that our systems need to be much more sensitive, much more responsive, instead of character assassinating the woman. When it comes to Justice Ganguly, what would you do if you were in his place today?
I think I would leave it to him. He's not legally bound to resign, but morally, if I were in his place, I would recuse myself for whatever time it takes to have the matter heard through the due process. That's what I think that he should do. But I won't fault him for not doing that, because he's taken his own decision on this matter, And as I think one of our earlier speakers said, in the next day or 2 or 3, the findings of that report of that committee will be possibly made public, and then we'll be clearer about what precisely are the facts. But I would feel that I heard something on a statement of his on television a short while ago, where apparently he said, I've yet to decide. So he's making his mind on that issue, but I don't think I would certainly not agree with the statements made by some others, outsiders, who say that he must resign, that he must be sacked, in a sense. That is a political statement, and I would not accept
So
that.
you're saying give him that space to take his own decision till more facts emerge? Am I understanding your position correctly? No.
If I were him,
Personally, you would have taken a different decision.
I would have recused myself.
But to sack him
right.
would be a political response.
Right.
I think I'm hearing Harish say something there. Harish, go ahead.
No, that's exactly what my view is. See, it's one thing for him to be removed. I think that then has his allegation that has political overtones now creeping in.
Yeah.
Cannot be ruled out. But at the same time, for person to function in such a situation, I don't think does well for either himself or the institution. He can just go on leave for the next 2 weeks, 3 weeks till this thing blows over or reaches some kind of conclusion.
Raju, that's the position you've taken.
Yes,
that he doesn't have to step down, he can step aside.
He can go on leave
because
the Supreme Court has, after all, named him. So he goes on leave. We expect the findings to be made public by the end of this week.
Now, you've heard what Soli Sorabji has said. He said it would set a bad precedent if every time there is an allegation, people step down or step aside.
He is heading a human rights body. He's a former judge of the Supreme Court. As Indra and Harish both have said, he holds a position of trust. It's not just this girl, but it's the whole commitment to the cause of human rights, which will suffer if a high functionary who is charged with misconduct, not by a stray person, but someone who has interned with him, and the Supreme Court has found it fit even at this stage to disclose the name, I think the first step is for him to go on leave. If the committee even finds prima facie that there is some truth to the allegations, then he must resign forthwith.
Do you believe the committee's report should be public, as Indra
Absolutely, and absolutely, and I think it will be public. I have no reason to believe that it's going to be kept under wraps indefinitely.
Let me just take this to KTS Tulsi. KTS Tulsi, as we speak, the National Commission for Women has also said that there should be a criminal case in this matter, that Justice Ganguly must be treated as any other citizen would, which is, I think, the point that, in a sense, Harish Salve was also making, that where's the FIR? There are people who are actually saying this is not an internal matter, where's the FIR? What do you say, Mr. Tulsi?
Well, the lady has chosen not to go to the police, and therefore there is no FIR. But the Supreme Court has taken cognizance of the matter and provided her with a conducive atmosphere where she is not intimidated and her statement is made, recorded, and thereafter the statement of the other party has also been recorded. And I want to say that we cannot belittle a few of the checks against the abuse of all these statutes. And one of the important checks is delay in the registration of an FIR, inordinate, gross delay in making the complaint. It detracts from the trustworthiness of the allegation, and that's something which.
How much time would you think? How much time would you grant, Mr. Tulsi? How much time would you grant humanly to a young woman who wants to speak up against sexual harassment against a very powerful person? How much time would you say is enough time?
I would not grant more than 24 hours, and they can send their complaint by email to the police commissioner.
How much time?
There is no question of their having to go to the police station.
I
will not grant
24 hours. Sir, 24 hours.
What about a 10-year-old
who complains against her father?
Who has been abused?
How much time will you give her?
And speaks about it at the age of 25? I don't know what
we have to see. No, and I say this because the manner in which the allegations are contained by this intern about 3 other girls, about the same judge, 4 other judges also harassing without disclosing, no one else is willing to come. I mean, how can we go on demolishing the institutions in such light-hearted manner? She is basing her allegations on mere hearsay. The person who may have suffered is not willing to come forward, and yet she chooses to become the mouthpiece of the others. How much damage is she willing to do to the institution in which the whole nation reposes faith?
I'll allow Indira Jaising to come in before we go to Calcutta to Ananya. Indira, the point there should be 24 hours. 24 hours you should know what you want to do if you have been in the receiving end of sexual harassment.
Barkha.
Yes.
Barkha, excuse me, Barkha. I think Mr. Tulsi knows neither his history, nor does he know the psychology of women, nor does he understand what a woman feels when she faces sexual harassment. Do you know that the Comfort Women of Japan, it took them more than a generation to talk about the sexual abuse they faced from the armed forces? I think he should go back and read his history, okay? Apart from that, he should put himself, if it's at all humanly possible for him to do that. Hello, excuse me. You know, I don't want to be personal over here. I could say a lot of things. I don't know whose case he's arguing on television today. But leave that matter aside. I think he should put himself in the shoes, if it is humanly possible for him, of a woman facing sexual harassment. And I think he needs to know that the law has advanced beyond what he thinks it is. The law today is that the subjective feelings of the woman should be taken into consideration in analyzing whether the sexual harassment has taken place or not. And how long does it take her to talk about it? Even here in her blog, she says, I'm talking about it because I still don't have closure.
Yeah.
That is the point.
Okay, K.T.S. Tulsi, quickly, would you know, I feel you're being facetious when you put this 24 hours thing. It's not even something we should discuss seriously, because how can you say 24 hours? Women, sir, may I say something? More than 90% of women know the person who has sexually abused them. This is a very important statistic, and it is because often women know the person. Sometimes it is within the family, sometimes it is within the workplace, sometimes it is within the extended family or the circle of trust. It is also because of that that women grapple with what to do next, and also because they fear the consequences of a public scrutiny of their characters. How can you undermine all that by saying 24 hours?
No, Barkha, I want to say to you as well as to Indira that I am the son. My mother was a feminist. In 1934, she was a feminist, and I know how she revolted against the system. I cannot believe that a girl who feels so strongly about having been violated, because even physical contact is violation of the dignity of a woman. I cannot imagine how in this day and age they cannot even write an email. They can surely bring themselves writing an mail and send it to the Commissioner of Police. That's deemed to be an FIR.
Okay,
you
Harish,
don't have to go to the
almost everybody is incredulous right now, but Harish, quickly,
Do you know something? There was already a suggestion, which fortunately Wiser had shot down, that we should all decide that senior counsel hereafter will not keep female interns.
Yeah, Indira spoke about that.
That's the kind of fear women suffer. But I don't know what, I was discussing this in 1891 or 2013.
Yeah.
I'm a little confused.
Yeah, absolutely. And Ananya Chakravarti, K.T.S. Tulsi will come back to you. Ananya Chakravarti, one of the reasons that women do not speak up immediately about violence or abuse or harassment at the workplace especially is because women already have to do better than the men to be treated as equals. First, let's just say that. Whether it's journalism, whether it's the law, whether it's any other field. And somehow I know that women, at least this has happened to me in the past, you feel defensive that if you complain about sexual harassment, it'll take, the next time you won't be maybe put on a certain assignment, because they'll say, yahan pe to aurtein aati hain, aake complain karengi. Which is the same way that Indira and Harish have made the point that senior counsel started talking about not hiring women. This is why women don't complain. They don't want to lose out on the professional level playing field, which isn't a level playing field to start with. Ananya, your take?
No, not by a long shot.
Yes, and to start with, Barkha, I would just like to make one small comment about the 24-hour thing that he talked about. You know, a very well-known feminist lawyer, Flavia Agnes, she was within an abusive marriage, and I think it took her 16 years to acknowledge it and come out of it. So it's not that, you know, she was lying because she said it after 16 years. So, and we all know how it happens, and you're absolutely right about the fact that
But that's a continuing offense.
Has to prove herself. A woman has to
no.
prove herself over and over again that she's an equal.
But that's a continuing
in the
offense.
process, if she cannot, if she kind of complains of sexual harassment, then it's a possibility that she will, lose her job, or she will not be given a good assignment.
You know, it's not even that you lose your job. You're suddenly looked at differently for a complicated assignment where there may be interaction at long hours, strange hours with men. Suddenly organizations will start thinking that, oh, maybe it's better to send a man here. Maybe it's better to more practical. And that's what women don't want to lose out on.
One more thing I would like to state, Barkha. It's a very serious issue, is that it's the Supreme Court which framed the Vishakha guidelines. But it's very alarming to know that the Supreme Court itself did not have a sexual harassment complaints committee, which is compulsory under the Vishakha guidelines.
Yes, I'm glad you raised that.
The complaints committee.
Yes.
And the complaints committee that was set up, even the complaints committee that was set up, under the Vishakha guidelines, it has to be headed by a woman. The majority of the people have to be women, and at least one person has to be an outsider. She has to be either an NGO or an eminent social activist. Because otherwise, if everybody is from the same fraternity, then it is a possibility that they will be influenced. So, but in this case, we've seen that the complaints committee consists of only former judges. So I'm not so sure of what the report is going to be.
We'll put that to the others in just a second. Mr. Verghese, I want to talk about something a little different. Today we have had the CPM take a certain position suggesting that there is politics in the immediate demand by the BJP to say that Justice Ganguly must resign. Actually, there isn't unanimity from the BJP because Subramaniam Swamy has said one thing and Sushma Swaraj has said quite another thing. But as political parties begin to take positions, what we do know, and what is a little bit of a similarity to the Tehelka case, is that in that case the defense has argued it has something to do with politics. Arun Jaitley has turned around and said secularism cannot be a defense in a rape trial. Similarly here, Mamta Banerjee and Justice Ganguly have a long history of very public disagreements and public clashes, and the CPM seems to be, or Muhammad Salim in his statement seems to be indicating that anything which is in haste would be political. Now, what do you do when politics or the backdrop of political discourse overlaps with an offense related to sexual harassment or sexual abuse?
I said the media should take a view. What is the media's responsibility here? To report every bit of nonsense that everybody says?
But do we back out the politicians?
No,
absolutely.
Don't. But treat it on its true merits. Why blow it out of proportion? Why debate it and discuss it with people who are uninformed, who are prejudiced, who are motivated? And this is what the media is doing day after day. The media is becoming a major problem. It's a very, very powerful institution, much more powerful than the judiciary or parliament. I say it is the first estate around the world. And therefore, it must use its power judiciously and with restraint. Here there's unrestrained comment of every kind, blowing things up and encouraging the same person. So many times conversation is, you can't say speak now, but I'll invite you tomorrow to have your piece. Now this sort of thing I think is totally unprofessional. And I would blame the media for setting the wrong tone, setting the wrong agenda. In so many of these issues, it has become problematic.
May I pick up from that though and just put one not really disagreement with Mr. Verghese, but a new element on the table. And that element is this, that in this case, you have someone as senior as Justice Kabir himself suggesting that this could be a conspiracy. Now this is no person on the street, this is Justice Altamas Kabir, who has gone on record to say that this could be a conspiracy. Now the moment you hear the word conspiracy, politics comes into it, then people start pointing to these differences, very, very serious differences between Mamta Banerjee's government and Justice Ganguly. Can the media, Raju, really leave the politics out of it when often the protagonists or key players are drawing attention to it?
No, I agree with you. I said yesterday on your channel again that a comment by a former Chief Justice of India that there can be a conspiracy was such an uncalled for comment, and you can't blame either politicians then for picking it up or the media then for highlighting this. Such comments should not have been made at all. I can understand someone saying, yes, he's been a colleague. I find it difficult to believe. That's the legitimate reaction of a friend or a colleague. But then, when a peer group of judges is examining the matter, its report is not yet out, to make this completely gratuitous comment that conspiracies happen only against people in high places was bound to fuel this kind of a controversy.
Curious Tulsi, since that's a little bit of a similar line of argument you've taken in your case, this screaming of political bias, is that a shield? Because no matter how good somebody's work is, now Subramaniam Swamy, for example, today suggesting that Justice Ganguly delivered very crucial orders against the government and he may be targeted because of that. In Tehelka's case, Tarun Tejpal and his legal team has suggested that he was doing a lot of important stories against the BJP and he's been targeted because of that. The question is, do people's good work take away from a complaint of sexual harassment? One doesn't have anything to do with the other, surely. Mr. Tulsi?
You're asking whom?
I'm asking you, because you've taken a similar argument. Yeah.
Okay, no. I believe that good work done by anyone has nothing to do so far as the crime is concerned.
Yes, exactly.
If it is an offense, you have to be tried, dehors, whatever you may be.
Yeah.
Jeffrey Archer had to face the prison only for a minor offense, and he did have to stay about 2 years in jail. But what I want to say is that I am totally opposed to putting pressure on Justice Ganguly, even through the media, that he should step down. I believe that stepping down would be a kind of an admission of guilt, and that because in India we don't seem to admire the voluntary abdication of the position, and therefore I don't think that but he would be doing any service either to himself or anyone else by stepping down at this stage.
Okay, Harish, you wanted to come in
we should await the decision.
Yeah, I think you're all wanting to come in. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay,
Just want to say two things.
Okay, Harish first, then Indra. Harish, go ahead. Yeah.
Do not ever forget, this sexual harassment has happened in a profession which is terribly male dominated.
Yeah.
I mean, my affection and my admiration for Indu's skills is tenfold because she has made it in this profession. Not only she is a top class lawyer, but to have made what she has, you ask her what her struggles have been. It's a thoroughly male dominated profession. Please count all that when you say why this young kid had to wait for 11 months. Put that in the scales.
Yeah. Yeah.
Secondly,
yeah.
when we set standards of institutional integrity, then that is the yardstick, not innocent till proven guilty. If a CVC was removed by the Supreme Court, not because he was found to be guilty, but on institutional integrity, I don't think it is unfair to say that it may be a good course of action for the chairman of the Human Rights Commission to step aside, not step down, till this blows over.
Okay, Indra quickly, and then Ananya, and then Raju gets the last one.
Yes.
Yeah.
Look, Barkha, I want to respond to a couple of things that Mr. Tulsi said. He first said that the media is trying to put pressure on Justice Ganguly to resign, and this is wrong. Let me tell you, it is Justice Kabir who has put pressure on all of us by giving him a character certificate, so to say, an anticipatory character certificate, which we don't need these gratuitous character certificates for people whose conduct is being looked into by 3 judges of the Supreme Court. The second point I want to make is, far from being an admission of guilt, if Justice Ganguly chose to resign from the West Bengal Human Rights Commission, we would admire him, we would salute him, because we would say he's done the thing that's morally right. Mr. Tulsi is wrong when he says Indian society does not admire people who do the morally right thing. And this is where I'd like to link up with the point that Mr. Verghese has been making. Namely, there are 2 issues here. There is the legal issue, there is the moral issue. And he said when it comes to the moral issue, he leaves it to the conscience of the man in question. Well, I think the conscience of the man in question is also on trial today. It's not just the law that he's accountable to, he's also accountable to his own conscience.
Okay, Ananya, very quickly, a different question. While we have seen the media in the Tejpal case and the judiciary in the Justice Ganguly case, what about politicians? You're in Kolkata, where Mamta Banerjee grabbed controversy for her comments on the Park Street rape case. She was accused of being insensitive. We have seen Naresh Agarwal of the Samajwadi Party making an insane remark that women will lose jobs if they keep complaining about sexual harassment. So do you believe that while all other institutions are under scrutiny, politicians somehow are not under the same scrutiny?
No, I think, this is one instance, actually speaking, where the Human Rights Commission chairperson A.K. Ganguly has been, giving critical judgments of the state for the last 1 year.
Yeah.
And it was natural. I mean, it would have been natural for the TMC to jump into the case and ask him to resign, which they have not.
Yeah.
Which is quite commendable. Actually, they have chosen not to politicize it. But it's very right that politicians need to be sensitive. All politicians are cutting across, the whole of India. They need to be more sensitive, and I think they need a course in women's rights. They need to be sensitized to women's rights.
I don't know if anyone can teach women's rights, but I'm going to give the last word to you, Raju Ramachandran. I'm totally out of time. One thing that was touched upon was the Sexual Harassment Committee set up belatedly by the Supreme Court. Also, Indira and others have raised the point that right now it only applies to the physical campus of the court, which leaves a vast grey area that if an intern and let's say a senior counsel or a judge is having their meeting in a coffee shop, do these guidelines not apply?
The judges never thought, when they were framing the guidelines for the rest of the world, that it could apply to them.
Yeah.
And that's why they kept it in the precincts of the Supreme Court. So now it must extend to the residential offices of judges and
point of connect.
And
point of connect.
Absolutely, the point of connect, and to the offices of lawyers wherever they are located.
Okay.
And one last point for Justice Ganguly. What should guide him? If he respects the office of Chairman Human Rights Commission, then he would step aside by going on leave today. But if he loves the office, then he will cling.
Okay, we leave it there. Raju Ramachandran, B.G. Verghese, Ananya Chakravarti, KTS Tulsi, Harish Salve, Indra Jaisingh. Thanks for joining us on the Buck Stops here. From the entire team, thanks for watching. Goodbye.